The human diplomat stood in the grand hall of the alien palace, feeling both awe and confusion. It was his first time on this planet, and the beauty of the place took his breath away. Towering marble columns stretched toward the sky, each etched with intricate patterns that shimmered in the soft light. The air smelled faintly of foreign flowers, a mix of sweet and earthy tones. As he looked around, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. Today was important. He had come to establish an alliance between his people and the alien race that ruled this planet. His mission was clear: to negotiate peace and foster mutual understanding. But as he walked through the halls, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The door at the end of the hall opened, revealing a chamber that was far more impressive than anything he had seen before. This was the throne room, and sitting on a large, intricately carved throne was the alien queen. She was beautiful in a way that humans could never truly understand, with shimmering skin, graceful features, and eyes that seemed to pierce through him. Her dark robes flowed elegantly around her, marking her status as royalty. The room fell silent the moment he stepped inside. "Welcome, human," the queen's voice echoed through the hall, deep and powerful, yet strangely calm. "I trust your journey was pleasant?" The diplomat bowed respectfully, his heart racing. "It was an honor to come here, Your Majesty. I look forward to discussing the future of our people." Before he could finish his sentence, the sound of small feet running echoed from behind him. He turned, startled to see a young alien girl running toward him. She was small, with bright eyes and a mischievous smile that made her appear both innocent and curious. The girl stopped in front of him, looking up with admiration, and then, to his utter shock, she hugged him. "Father!" she cried happily. The diplomat froze, unsure of how to respond. The word echoed in the silence of the room, and the queen's eyes narrowed as she leaned forward on her throne. Her expression shifted from calm to one of complete shock. "Why does my daughter call you Father Human?" the queen asked, her voice now laced with an edge of suspicion. The diplomat stood there, speechless. He had no idea how to explain this. He had never seen this child before in his life, and yet here she was, calling him father without hesitation. The young girl pulled away from him, looking up at him with big, innocent eyes. "You're my father, aren't you?" she asked, as if the answer was obvious. The diplomat glanced at the queen, who was now glaring at him with a mix of confusion and anger. He wasn't sure what to say. He had traveled across galaxies for diplomatic purposes, but nothing in his training had prepared him for this moment. He felt like he had stepped into a strange dream. I'm not sure what you mean," he stammered, trying to collect his thoughts. "I've never met your daughter before." The queen's eyes remained locked on him, still filled with disbelief. "Then how is it that she calls you father?" Her voice was steady, but there was an unmistakable tension in the air. The diplomat glanced down at the girl, who was still holding his hand with a sense of familiarity. She didn't look scared or confused. She looked like she knew him. It was unsettling. The queen stood from her throne, her gaze unwavering. "This is no time for games, human. What is the meaning of this?" He took a deep breath, trying to think of something to say that would make sense of this situation, but no explanation came to mind. The girl had clearly formed some kind of bond with him, but how? The queen stepped forward, her regal presence filling the room. "You must answer me now. I am not a patient ruler." The diplomat was about to speak again when the girl looked up at him and smiled brightly. "Father, will you tell her? You promised you would protect me." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. He had no idea what she meant, but the sincerity in her voice made him want to help her. There was something unsettlingly familiar about the way she looked at him, like a child who had known him all her life. He began, but the queen interrupted him. "Enough." The queen's voice rang through the hall. "You will tell me the truth, or I will have you escorted off my planet." The diplomat's mind raced. What truth was she talking about? He was just here to help establish peace. But why did this girl believe he was her father? There was no logic to it. He had never seen her before, and he certainly hadn't made any promises to protect her, but the girl's innocent eyes held him captive. He had to know what was going on. He had to understand why she was calling him father. "I don't know what's happening here, Your Majesty," he said, his voice soft but firm. "But I swear to you, I've never met this child before." The Queen looked at him for a long moment, as if weighing his words. Then, with a slight nod, she motioned for the guards to step forward. "Take the human to a private room," she commanded. "He will remain there until further notice. We will discuss this later." The guards immediately moved to escort the diplomat away, but he could feel the Queen's eyes still on him, filled with suspicion and confusion. As he walked out of the throne room, his mind raced. What was happening? Why had this child called him father? And more importantly, why had the Queen reacted the way she had? The answer seemed so far out of reach. But one thing was certain. His mission had just become far more complicated than he could have ever imagined. The diplomat sat in a small, sterile room, trying to make sense of what had just happened. He had been escorted away from the throne room without much ceremony, and now he was left alone to think. His mind raced with questions. Why had the young, alien girl called him father? What had he missed? And why was the Queen so furious? The room was cold and sparse, the walls made of a strange, smooth material he couldn't recognize. There was no furniture other than a simple bench against one wall. He paced back and forth, running his hands through his hair in frustration. He needed answers, and he needed them fast. It had only been a few hours since his arrival, but everything had changed. He had come here with the hope of forming an alliance, of helping his people and theirs work together for a better future. But now he was caught up in a mystery that had nothing to do with diplomacy. He sighed heavily, trying to focus. Suddenly, the door opened, and the young alien girl walked in. Her presence was both unexpected and unsettling. She stood there for a moment, her eyes filled with something he couldn't quite place. Innocence, maybe? Or maybe something deeper? "Father?" she asked softly, her voice almost hopeful. The diplomat froze, unsure of what to say. This was the second time she had called him father, and it didn't make sense. He had never met her before, never even heard of her before arriving on this planet. Yet there was a connection between them that he couldn't explain. I don't understand," he began, his voice low. "Why do you call me that?" "What do you mean?" The girl tilted her head as if she were trying to understand him. She took a small step forward, her bright eyes never leaving his. "You're my father," she repeated, her voice gentle but firm. "You promised you would protect me." The diplomat's mind raced. Protect her? He had no memory of promising anything to anyone, especially not to an alien child. He had never been in this part of the galaxy before. Yet here she was, standing in front of him, insisting that he was her father. "I don't remember making any promises," he said carefully. "And I don't remember you. I've never met you before." The girl's face fell slightly, as though his words had disappointed her, but then she spoke again. "You did. You saved me." Saved her? He frowned, trying to recall any events that could explain this strange claim. But nothing came to mind. The only time he had ever been in a situation where he might have saved someone was during a mission months ago. But it was a completely different part of the galaxy. How could this girl be involved? The girl's eyes seemed to brighten as she saw the confusion on his face. "You don't remember, do you?" she asked, almost sad. She took a step closer to him, her small form radiating an odd sense of trust. "You were there when I was lost, when I needed help. You didn't even hesitate. You promised me you would protect me." The diplomat was quiet for a moment. He tried to recall any mission where he might have met this girl, any time he might have been in danger. But the details were too vague. He had worked on countless missions, but none of them had involved anything like this. "Who are you?" he asked softly. "Why do you say I promised to protect you?" The girl smiled faintly, as if she understood something. He didn't. "You don't remember, but I do. she said, her voice carrying a strange weight. I know it's hard to understand, but we're connected. We've always been connected. The diplomat swallowed, trying to grasp what she was saying. How are we connected? He asked, his voice shaky. The last thing he wanted to do was upset her, but he needed clarity. This didn't make sense. The girl hesitated for a moment, her eyes glancing down as though she were trying to find the right words. There's a prophecy, she said almost in a whisper. My mother, the Queen, she knows it too. She's known for a long time, but she hasn't told you yet. The mention of a prophecy made the diplomat's heart skip a beat. He had heard rumors about ancient prophecies on alien worlds, but they always seemed like myths, things that old cultures clung to for meaning. Could this have something to do with him? What prophecy? He asked, his voice low. What does it have to do with me? The girl looked up at him, her eyes shining with something that resembled hope. It says that a human will come. A human who will be the father of the stars. A human who will change the course of our world. The diplomat's mind raced. The father of the stars? Was this child talking about him? He was just a simple diplomat. How could he possibly be the one mentioned in an ancient prophecy? But I'm just a diplomat, he said, his voice trembling slightly. I'm just here to help with peace talks. I don't know anything about prophecies or the fate of your world. The girl nodded slowly as if she had expected him to say that. That's what my mother said too, but she's wrong. You don't know it, but you're important. More important than you realize. She paused, then added, You're the one who can bring peace. You're the one who can protect us all. The diplomat felt a chill run down his spine. This was beyond anything he had ever expected. He had come to this planet thinking he was going to sign a treaty, but now he was being told that he was part of some prophecy that had the potential to shape the future of an entire galaxy. But how could that be possible? He was just a man, an ordinary human with no special abilities, no knowledge of ancient alien prophecies. And yet, this girl, this alien child, was certain that he was the one who could save them. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. Why didn't the Queen tell me about this? He asked, his mind still spinning. Why would she keep it a secret? The girl's eyes darkened slightly. She's scared, she said, her voice soft. She doesn't want to believe it, but she knows. Deep down, she knows that you're the one the prophecy speaks of. The diplomat was silent for a long time, absorbing the weight of her words. He had no idea what to believe. The idea that he could change the fate of an entire alien race seemed too much to comprehend. Yet, looking at the girl's earnest expression, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story than he realized. I don't know what to do with this, he said finally, his voice hoarse. The girl smiled up at him. You don't have to do anything yet. But you will, when the time is right. As she turned to leave, she paused at the door and looked back at him. Just remember, Father, you promised me. You promised you would protect me. And with that, she was gone, leaving the diplomat alone with his thoughts. The diplomat sat back down on the cold, hard bench, his mind spinning. The conversation with the young alien girl had left him more confused than ever. A prophecy? The father of the stars? It was all too much to process. He had come to this alien world with a simple mission in mind, to negotiate peace and strengthen ties between their people. But now everything had changed. A quiet knock at the door broke his train of thought. He turned, startled, as the door opened and the Queen herself entered the room. Her regal presence filled the small space, and the diplomat stood quickly, unsure of how to greet her after the strange encounter with her daughter. Your Majesty, he said, bowing slightly. I wasn't expecting... I know, the Queen interrupted, her voice cold and controlled. I thought it was time we spoke. She stepped further into the room, her eyes narrowing as she assessed the human before her. I've heard about your conversation with my daughter. The diplomat swallowed nervously, unsure of where this conversation would lead. She believes I'm her father. I don't understand. I've never met her before. The Queen's gaze softened. For a moment, but only slightly. I know she believes that, but you're not her father. Then why? The diplomat began, but the Queen raised a hand to silence him. I understand your confusion, she said, her voice quieter now, though still firm. But there's more to this than you realize. Much more. The diplomat took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. What do you mean? What is all of this? What does this prophecy have to do with me? The Queen's eyes flickered with something that could only be described as a mixture of sadness and fear. She walked toward the window, gazing out at the alien landscape beyond. It has everything to do with you, she said quietly. I had hoped to keep this secret for longer, but I see now that it is time for the truth to come out. The diplomat's mind raced. What truth? What prophecy? The Queen turned back to face him, her eyes darkening. There is an ancient prophecy in my people's history. It has been passed down for generations, but it is not well known. It speaks of a human who will come from far beyond the stars. This human will be the key to our survival. He will unite the fractured factions of the galaxy, and through him, peace will be achieved. But he will also be the one who will lead us into a time of great darkness. He will be our salvation and our destruction. The diplomat stared at her, trying to wrap his mind around her words. A human? Him? The prophecy didn't make sense. How could he be the one to fulfill something so monumental? He was just an ordinary diplomat. No special powers, no extraordinary abilities. He had no idea what she was talking about. That's impossible, he said, shaking his head in disbelief. I'm just a negotiator. I don't know anything about prophecies or galaxy-wide wars. I just want peace. The Queen's gaze softened, but there was no trace of doubt in her eyes. I understand your skepticism. I didn't believe it either at first, but the signs are undeniable. The diplomat took a step forward, trying to make sense of everything. What signs? How do you know this prophecy is about me? The Queen hesitated, her fingers brushing against a pendant around her neck. It was always said that the human who would fulfill the prophecy would carry a unique mark, a mark that signifies the beginning of his journey, a mark that appears only once in a lifetime, and I've seen that mark. The diplomat's eyes widened. A mark? What kind of mark? The Queen stepped closer, her expression more serious now. The mark is invisible to most, but to those who know how to see it, it's unmistakable. And it is on you. The diplomat's heart skipped a beat. He had never seen anything like that. He hadn't noticed anything unusual about himself. What was she talking about? How could this be happening? But I don't feel anything, he said, still struggling to understand. I don't have any mark. I'm just me. The Queen didn't answer immediately. Instead, she seemed to search his face, as if looking for something only she could see. Then, after a long silence, she spoke again. Perhaps it hasn't fully revealed itself yet. Or perhaps you're simply unaware of it. But it's there. I can feel it. The future you carry is written in the stars, and it is only a matter of time before the truth becomes undeniable. The diplomat shook his head. I can't believe this. I'm not the person you think I am. I'm just a man. I'm here to help, nothing more. The Queen's eyes hardened. And yet you are the one whom my daughter believes is her father. She called you that, didn't she? The diplomat nodded slowly. Yes, but I don't understand it. I've never met her before today, and now she's saying I promised to protect her, that I'm the one who's supposed to help her. The Queen sighed deeply, as if the weight of her burden were too much to bear. You do not remember because the prophecy speaks of a time when the human who is meant to be our savior will not know his true role. He will not recognize the bond he shares with us until it is too late. What does that mean? The diplomat asked, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and confusion. It means, the Queen said, her voice steady but heavy, that the time has come for you to accept your place in this galaxy. You are the one who will change everything, and whether you like it or not, you are tied to my people, to my daughter, and to the future of this entire galaxy. The diplomat took a step back, his mind reeling. He had come here thinking he was on a simple peace mission, but now he was. learning that he might be part of something much bigger, something he couldn't even begin to understand. And the worst part? He was just beginning to realize that he couldn't escape it. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice quiet. "I don't know what to do with all of this." The Queen's expression softened for a moment. "No one expects you to know. Not yet. But you will. In time, you will." With that, she turned and walked toward the door, leaving the diplomat alone with his thoughts. As the door closed behind her, the diplomat sank back down onto the bench, his mind racing. The truth was out now, and there was no going back. He was part of something far bigger than he could ever have imagined, and whether he was ready or not, his destiny had been sealed. The diplomat sat in the small, dimly lit room, his mind a whirlwind of confusion. The conversation with the Queen had left him more unsettled than ever. He had learned more about the prophecy, about the strange connection he shared with the alien girl, and about his supposed role in the future of this galaxy, but none of it made sense. He was just a man, a negotiator sent here to form a peaceful alliance. How could he be the key to some ancient prophecy? He rubbed his temples, trying to push away the questions that kept swirling in his mind. He needed time to think, but time seemed to be running out. The Queen had made it clear that there was no turning back. His involvement in her world's future was set in motion. He couldn't escape it, no matter how hard he tried. The door to his room opened again, and the Queen stepped inside. She was as calm and composed as ever, her regal presence filling the room. But there was something different in her eyes. Something more uncertain. "Your Majesty," the diplomat said, rising to his feet. "I didn't expect you to return so soon." The Queen didn't respond immediately. She walked toward him slowly, her eyes focused on the floor as though deep in thought. Then she looked up at him, her expression more serious than ever. "I have made a decision," she said quietly, "and you will not like it." The diplomat felt a sense of unease wash over him. "What decision?" The Queen paused, her gaze piercing. "I have decided to send you away. You will leave this planet and return to your own people. Your role, in the prophecy as you call it, is a burden. I will not allow you to be dragged into this any longer." The diplomat's heart raced. This was not what he had expected. Just moments ago, the Queen had told him he was tied to her people, to her daughter, and to the fate of the galaxy. And now she was saying he should leave? "Your Majesty, I don't understand," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "You said yourself that I am part of this prophecy. That I was wrong," she interrupted sharply. "I thought that you could be the answer we needed. But I see now that you are too fragile, too ordinary. The burden of this galaxy's future is too great for any human, no matter how well-intentioned. I cannot risk you being destroyed in the process." The diplomat felt a sting at her words, but he forced himself to stay calm. "I may not understand everything, but I know that leaving now isn't the answer. There is something happening here, something important. If I walk away now, I'll be abandoning your people, your daughter. You need me." The Queen shook her head, her eyes filled with sadness. "It is not that simple. You may think you are needed, but in truth you are only a pawn in a much larger game. The prophecy does not demand that you sacrifice everything for us. And if you stay, it will destroy you. It will destroy all of us." The diplomat took a step toward her, trying to reason with her. "I can't leave without knowing the truth. You say the prophecy is a burden, but how can you expect me to walk away from it without even trying to understand? You cannot just push me away because it's too difficult." The Queen's eyes flickered with something like guilt, but she quickly masked it. "It's not about difficulty. It's about the price. And you, human, have no idea what that price truly is." The diplomat's mind raced. He had never felt so powerless. The fate of an entire galaxy seemed to rest on his shoulders, yet he had no idea how to carry that weight. He was just a man, a negotiator, someone who dealt with words, not with prophecies, or wars, or galactic destinies. But still, he couldn't shake the feeling that if he left now, he would never know the truth. He would never know why the girl called him father, or why he was supposed to play a role in this prophecy. "You don't want me to help." he said softly. But you need me. The prophecy says I am the one who will bring peace. I can't. Ignore that. I can't walk away and pretend like it doesn't matter. The queen looked at him, her expression unreadable. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was thick, filled with tension and unspoken thoughts. Finally, the queen let out a slow breath and stepped closer to him. I never wanted to involve you in this, she said quietly. I wanted to protect you, to keep you safe from what is to come. But I see now that it's inevitable. You're tied to this, whether you like it or not, and whether I like it or not, too. The diplomat's heart skipped a beat. What are you saying? The queen's eyes met his, and for the first time he saw a glimpse of vulnerability in her gaze. I'm saying that you are part of this galaxy's future, whether I want you to be or not. I cannot deny that anymore, but I will not force you into this fight. The choice is yours. You can leave and never look back, or you can stay and accept the truth of your destiny. The diplomat felt a chill run down his spine. His destiny? What did that mean? He had never asked for any of this. He had never chosen to be the savior of an entire race or to be tied to a prophecy that seemed too big for him to comprehend. But as he looked into the queen's eyes, he realized that this was no longer about him. This was about the future of her people, the future of the galaxy. And if he left now, he would never know if he could make a difference. I can't walk away, he said, his voice steady. I'm staying. Whatever this prophecy means, I'll face it. For your people. For your daughter. For the galaxy. The queen looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she nodded. I knew you would choose this path. It's not an easy one, but it's the only one that matters now. The diplomat felt a weight settle in his chest. The road ahead would be long, and he wasn't sure where it would lead. But he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't turn back. Not now. Not when so much was at stake. Then we prepare, the queen said, her voice firm once more. The battle ahead will be unlike anything you've ever faced. But you are not alone in this. I will help you. We all will. As she turned to leave, the diplomat stood tall. He had made his decision. And now, he would face whatever came next. The air was thick with tension. The diplomat, once a simple negotiator, was now caught in a whirlwind of prophecy and galactic conflict. Despite his best efforts to remain calm, the weight of what was coming pressed heavily on his shoulders. He had made his decision, to stay and face the challenges ahead. But as he stood beside the queen, preparing for what they knew was coming, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed forever. They had gathered in a war room deep within the palace, surrounded by maps of the galaxy, images of distant planets, and detailed reports from various intelligence sources. The queen stood at the head of the table, her regal presence commanding the room, while the diplomat tried to follow the conversation, his mind struggling to absorb the magnitude of the situation. You've heard the news, the queen said, her voice sharp and focused. The Empire is on the move. They are coming for us. The diplomat nodded, though he didn't fully understand the gravity of the situation. He had only heard vague rumors about the Empire, a powerful faction that had once ruled the galaxy with an iron fist, but had since splintered into many different factions. They were known for their ruthlessness and desire for power, and the queen had made it clear that they would stop at nothing to reclaim what they had lost. The queen's advisors and generals were already busy organizing the defense. The room was filled with whispers of plans, strategies, and contingencies. Despite all the preparations, there was an air of uncertainty. The diplomat couldn't help but feel like a stranger in this world, a man who was suddenly thrust into a battle that wasn't his own. You're the key to all of this, the queen said, breaking his thoughts. Her eyes were fixed on him, her gaze intense but not unkind. The prophecy says that you are the one who can unite the galaxy, but I need you to understand the stakes. If we fail, everything we've worked for will be lost. The diplomat's heart raced as he realized just how much was riding on his decisions. I don't know how I can help, he said quietly. I'm just a man. I have no armies, no power. The Queen's eyes softened for a moment. You may not have armies or power, but you have something else. You have the ability to connect people, to inspire trust where none exists. You are the bridge between us and the other races. You are the one who can forge the alliances we need to survive. The diplomat looked at her, unsure of what to say. He had no idea how he was supposed to do any of this. He was not a leader, not a warrior. He was just a man, caught in a world, far beyond his understanding. I don't know how to unite the galaxy, he said, his voice heavy with doubt. I don't even understand what's going on. The Queen's gaze softened, but her voice remained firm. I know this is overwhelming, but there's no time to waste. The Empire is not just a threat to us. It's a threat to everything, to all the races, to all the lives that depend on peace. You're the only one who can stop it. The words sank in slowly. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him, but there was no time for self-doubt. The Empire was coming, and whether he was ready or not, he had a role to play. We have to prepare, the diplomat said, his voice steady now. If we're going to face this, we need to unite. We need allies. The Queen nodded. That's why we're here. We need you to reach out to the other factions, the ones who will stand with us, the ones who believe in a future where the Empire doesn't rule. For the first time since he had arrived, the diplomat felt a sense of purpose. He was no longer just a messenger, no longer just a man who had wandered into a strange galaxy. He was part of something much bigger, and if he didn't act, the galaxy could be torn apart. We need to act quickly, the Queen continued, her voice low and urgent. The Empire is already moving, and if we don't strike first, we risk losing everything. The diplomat nodded, his mind racing. He didn't have all the answers, but he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't do this alone. Over the next few days, the diplomat worked alongside the Queen and her advisors to send out messages to various factions, hoping to forge alliances before it was too late. Some responded quickly, eager to join the fight against the Empire. Others were more cautious, reluctant to align themselves with a group they saw as weak or divided. But the diplomat remained determined. He knew that every conversation, every negotiation, brought them one step closer to the alliance they so desperately needed. Slowly, he began to see the pieces fall into place. Meanwhile, the Queen worked tirelessly to prepare her people for the coming battle. She trained her soldiers, strengthened her defenses, and made alliances of her own with factions that had long been loyal to her. The tension in the palace was palpable, as everyone knew that the coming war would change everything. As the diplomat met with leaders of various factions, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the prophecy on his shoulders. The more he saw of the galaxy, the more he realized how deeply connected everything was, how his actions, his decisions, would affect the lives of countless people. The future of the galaxy rested in their hands, and there was no room for failure. One evening, after a long day of meetings, the diplomat found himself alone in his room, staring out at the stars. The galaxy was vast, and the challenges ahead seemed impossible, but he couldn't back down now. He had made his choice, and he was determined to see it through. The Queen had given him a chance to prove himself. She believed in him, and for the first time he believed in himself too. He wasn't just a negotiator anymore, he was the key to the galaxy's future, and no matter how difficult the road ahead might be, he was ready to face it. With a deep breath, the diplomat turned away from the window and looked at the data pad on the table beside him. The work was far from over. The battle was just beginning. But one thing was certain, he would not back down. Not now, not ever. The diplomat had never felt more uncertain. Despite the preparations, despite the alliances they had worked tirelessly to form, the Empire was still coming. Every day the news grew more dire, and the tensions between factions were reaching a boiling point. They were running out of time, and the final battle was drawing near. He had hoped that his efforts would unite the galaxy, that he could make a difference. But now, as he stood in the war room with the Queen, his doubts resurfaced. Could one man, one diplomat, truly make a difference in the face of such overwhelming power? The queen stood at the table, her face hard and resolute, but there was a flicker of something behind her eyes, a mixture of fear and determination. She had been the ruler of her people for years, and yet, now in the face of the Empire's might, even she seemed unsure. "We don't have much time," she said, her voice steady but strained. "The Empire's fleet is nearly here. If we don't strike first, we'll be at their mercy." The diplomat nodded, his own mind swirling with the enormity of the situation. The decisions they made now would determine the future of not just this planet, but the entire galaxy. He couldn't afford to let fear paralyze him. Not now, not when so much was at stake. "We've built strong alliances," the diplomat said, trying to reassure himself. "We've done everything we can." The queen turned to him, her gaze sharp. "Have we? Have we truly done enough? The Empire will not care about our alliances, our treaties, or our promises. They will come with force, and they will take what they want. Our only hope lies in uniting the galaxy in a way that's never been done before." The diplomat clenched his fists, feeling the weight of her words. Uniting the galaxy. It seemed impossible. But if the prophecy was true, if he was truly the one who could bring peace, then he couldn't afford to fail. "I don't know if I can unite them," the diplomat admitted, his voice quieter than he intended. "I've been trying, but it's not enough. We need something more." The queen's eyes softened and she stepped closer to him, her voice lowering. "You've already done more than anyone else could have. But the prophecy speaks of something beyond diplomacy and treaties. It speaks of something deeper, something that binds all of us together." The diplomat's mind raced. What could she mean? What was this deeper bond? Before he could ask, the queen turned and nodded to one of her advisors, who stepped forward and placed a datapad on the table. The screen flickered to life, showing an ancient document in a language the diplomat didn't understand. But the symbols, strange and unfamiliar, seemed to resonate with him in a way he couldn't explain. "This," the queen said, pointing to the document, "is the key. It's the final piece of the prophecy. The part I've been reluctant to show you." The diplomat's heart skipped a beat. "What is it? What does it mean?" The queen took a deep breath. "It's an ancient ritual, a joining of blood, of heart, and of will. The prophecy doesn't just speak of alliances between people. It speaks of a bond that goes deeper, something that connects us all on a fundamental level. You are the one who will bridge that gap. You are the one who will make it possible." The diplomat stared at the screen, unable to make sense of the symbols. "A ritual? What do you mean by joining of blood and heart?" The queen's gaze grew distant for a moment, as if she were remembering something long buried. "It's an old tradition, one that was used to unite fractured kingdoms in our past. But it requires two things: trust and sacrifice." "Sacrifice?" The diplomat's voice was thick with confusion. "What do you mean? What kind of sacrifice?" The queen looked at him, her eyes filled with the weight of centuries of history. "It's a bond that's not just symbolic. It requires a willing exchange, an offering of something precious, a piece of yourself that you are willing to give up in order to create something stronger." The diplomat felt his pulse quicken. "And what do you want me to offer?" The queen's eyes were steady, but her voice was soft. "Your trust, your loyalty, your belief in this cause. In return, you will receive the trust of the galaxy. You will be able to unite the factions in a way that words alone cannot, but it will not come without cost." The diplomat stared at the screen, the reality of what she was asking sinking in. The cost was not just political, it was personal. This wasn't just about diplomacy, it was about something far deeper, something he couldn't yet fully grasp. "I don't know if I'm ready for that," he said, his voice heavy with doubt. "I don't know if I can sacrifice something that deep." The queen's expression softened, and she stepped closer. "I know it's a difficult decision, but you must understand. The galaxy needs you. The prophecy needs you. If you are to lead us, you must take that final step. You must become the bridge, the leader, the father that the prophecy speaks of. And that will require a sacrifice." The diplomat's thoughts were a swirl of emotions. He had never wanted to be a leader. never wanted to be part of something so monumental. He had come here to help, to negotiate, and yet, here he was, standing on the edge of a decision that would change everything. But as he looked at the Queen, at the people who had placed their trust in him, he realized that there was no turning back now. The future of the galaxy rested in his hands, and if he truly believed in the prophecy, in the cause, then he had to be willing to take that final step. "I'll do it," he said, his voice steady now. "I'll do what it takes. For the galaxy, for your people, for the future." The Queen nodded, a small smile breaking through her usual stoic demeanor. "Then we prepare for what comes next. The Empire won't wait forever, but with you by our side we may have a chance." And as the diplomat turned away from the screen, a sense of resolve settled within him. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain: he was ready to face it, for the galaxy, for the Queen, and for the daughter who had called him father.